Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the late start. Welcome to the Regional Development Assessment Panel meeting of the 14th of August. My name's Tony Arias and I'm the presiding member. I'll introduce the other panel members for this morning. Kanoa Hope, who's the deputy presiding member, and we have Jason Hick as specialist member. For part B of the agenda, which is City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, we have Councillor Turner and Deputy Mayor Della. And for part C of the agenda, which is Greater Geraldton, we have Mayor Clune and Councillor Colliver. So with that, I will formally declare the meeting open at 9:38 and acknowledge traditional owners and pay respects to elders past and present of the land on which the meeting is being held. The meeting will be run in accordance with RDAP Standing Order 2024. Panel members may refer to technical devices to assist them in considering the information that's before them. And this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the RDAP website. Item 2, apologies. We do have an apology from Councillor Winner from the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. Item 3, members on leave of absence, there are nil. Item 4, for information, just minutes of previous meetings are on the RDAP website. So members, we move to part B of the agenda, which is City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. Item 1 is declarations of due consideration. Members, are you able to declare that you've considered all the documentation provided within part B of the agenda and part B related information? If you declare that by raising your hand or duly declared, thank you. Item 2, disclosures of interest. We don't have any to date. I just remind local government members that if the item has gone to council, there's a requirement under the standing orders to make a declaration. Deputy Mayor, has the item gone to council?
Yes, it has.
It has, okay. In which case, you'll both need to make a declaration that you're not bound by the council decision and you can consider the matter on merit, if you're able to do that.
Yep.
Or duly declared. Okay. And the RDAP Secretariat will provide forms just so you can formalise that declaration. Thank you. Members, any other declarations? If not, item 3, Form 1 applications, we have nil. Item 4, Form 2 applications, we do have one, item 4.1, and it's lot 672 Great Eastern Highway, Somerville, and it's workforce accommodation facility. We do have one presenter, Joseph Ewing from Planning Solutions. Joseph, are you there?
I am, yes. Good morning.
Good morning. Before you start, just a reminder, standing orders allow for a 3-minute presentation, and I'll remind you when you're about 3 minutes. And after that, opportunity for questions. So over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, panel members and staff. My name is Joseph Ewing, Senior Planner at Planning Solutions, and we act for the proponent of the proposed amendments to the previously approved workforce accommodation facility in Somerville. I'll be speaking briefly this morning in support of the proposed development. I'd like to start by thanking you for the opportunity to speak, and I'd also like to thank the City's officers for their consideration and assistance through the assessment process. This proposal seeks approval for additional structures and minor layout changes, which are resultant of requirements under separate legislation or have been added to improve amenity and security for occupants. Additional structures include an ablutions block adjacent to the barbecue area and gym, a security hut adjacent to the internal access way, a maintenance shed and a locker building. Modifications include an airlock to the kitchen and dining building, the relocation of one accommodation unit, a reduction of laundry units by 1, and a reduction of 5 car parking bays to accommodate an adequately sized bin store. These changes are considered minor in nature with respect to the overall facility and do not materially impact the nature of the approved development. Rather, the changes will improve amenity for occupants and the overall operation of the facility. This proposal is consistent with the planning framework and is supported by the city's officers with the responsible authority for presenting a recommendation for approval. We respectfully request the panel considers the application on its merits and adopts the approval recommendation for approval, recognising the minor nature of this proposal. Thank you for your time. I would also be pleased to answer any questions from the panel if required.
Thank you, Joseph, for the presentation. Panel members, questions? Ms. Hope?
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, Joseph. I was just wanting some clarity. I think it's quite clear the reason for the minor changes, but it was the change to the parking that I was interested in. The original approval, and I did sit back on that original panel, was that there was condition 5 required relocation of the bin store, but also bus bay number 1. And then condition 19 required 38 car parking bays to be provided. The recommendation from the city is that the conditions stay as they are. So I suppose it'd be a question for the city as well. I'm just a little bit unclear on how that works, because there's been plans presented that still include bus bay 1, but also now show 34 rather than the 38 bays.
No worries. So I guess I'll speak to the bus bay 1 first. My understanding is it was originally located sort of closer to that northwestern corner, where there's an existing sewer pit manhole there. That was also the location of that bin store originally. So bus bay 1 was shifted to the south, sort of adjoining that lower original bus bay that's along the service road, and the bin store was shifted to the east in place of those parking bays.
Okay, well, perhaps just sticking on that one, the way I understood it is that there was provision for bus turning, and that's why there's such a big hard stand area at the back. But the swing was required across that left-hand side where there were bus bays proposed. Has there been, there still seems to be a bus bay, basically, where the turning was. Can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, is that you're speaking about the northernmost bay there?
Yeah, that's right. So
Yeah.
I've just gone back to the original agenda that had the card no traffic report in it.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I suppose I'm just wondering how it fits, and you know, it's quite a busy development. The parking was accepted. Well, at the time, I don't think there were a particular parking rate, but the parking rate was accepted at 38, which was probably on the cusp or less than, given the busing of people that would stay here. And yeah, then I'm just a little bit unsure that the conditions of the approval still require these requirements to be met.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, and noted regarding that approval condition, which obviously is different to the plans presented requiring 38. I think we've got 34 on the plans here.
That's right.
Yeah, so yeah, I imagine that may need to be updated as part of this approval, considering the parking or levels been accepted as part of the RAR. Obviously, up to you in terms of consideration for that one.
Yeah.
My understanding with the bus parking is generally it's more of a contingency measure, as the buses would arrive in the morning, make that movement within that large rear access area, pick people up, and then exit basically in one sort of movement. So I guess the bus parking was a contingency for if these buses would need to be parked on site overnight, etc. which I don't expect is happening frequently at the moment. Yeah, and then as you mentioned in regards to that, the parking provision, the vast majority of movements associated with this facility would be bus, people arriving at the airport, arriving via bus, going to and from the worksite via bus, and then back to the airport at the end of the stint also via bus. And there's a few sort of light vehicles on site, shared between the occupants as required, and also the admin staff at the facility. I understand the parking to be underutilized at this point.
Okay. I suppose if the recommendation, if the panel supports that as it's been put, to my reading of it, you still need to provide 34 bays. Is there ability to still do that? It looks like there might be, but perhaps at the expense of landscaping, or it would require a change in the
Yep.
Okay. All right. Kind of answered my question. I will pose that question to the city as well. But yeah, that's all from me at the moment, presiding member.
Members, any other questions of Joseph? If not, thank you for the presentation. We will move to the city's officers. Paulise, are you the right person to focus questions to?
Thank you. I have Kevin Tang with me, who's our planning coordinator, and he's been working across this project, and so he will provide comments on behalf of the city, if that's okay.
Okay, no problem. Would you like to make any sort of comments about the modification to the application, given the issue raised by Ms. Hope?
Yeah, so we've since reviewed the application as minor additions and alterations. It does result in a reduction of the number of car bays on site. So the city has no objection to the amendment to condition 20 of the previous approval.
Okay, so just to be clear, if the panel was to support the modification, it would need to also look at modifying condition 20. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, sir. We actually did realise that at some point later in time, so we fully support that obviously the notice of determination wording should reflect the final plan, and we absolutely support that.
Members, questions of the city officers? Ms. Hope?
Thank you for the response. Just with regard to the bus bay, firstly, and just clarifying the original application, there was a bit of a conflict of bus bay 1 with the buses turning. Are you satisfied that the bus parking arrangement and the movement of buses within that back area still works in this new plan?
Through the chair, I think given the amendment to the layout, I think the bus parking bay is now set back further from the rear boundary. It actually provides a better turning space for the bus bay, for them to go to the turning area and turn around and enter the street in the forward gear. I think it's probably now is in a better position than the previous design.
Oops, off mute. It looks to be pretty much in the same spot.
Still works.
Yeah, the city's engineering team has reviewed the amended proposal, and it's satisfied that the bus turning bay will be sufficient.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose I'm not clear on that. In comparing it back with the traffic report and the movement, the swept paths in the original application, in this current proposal where it says bus parking, that was where the buses actually swung through. Still went through that bus bay number 1. But it looks like that can still be rearranged along that boundary to avoid that. So that current condition of the approval would still need to be met. Perhaps, presiding member, I could share my screen.
That'll be useful. Thank you.
Has that come off?
Yes, it has.
So that's from the agenda of the last meeting. That's out of the traffic report.
Can't see it.
So we can't see it.
It's not up on the screen.
No, it's not on the screen.
Beyond my technical ability, it says my screen is being shared.
No, it's just blank, gone blank.
I can see it, Canella.
Has it not gone? Maybe the secretariat needs to give some more access to you.
I can see it too.
So it's this bay that's been lost.
So that was previous approved plans. That is.
So it's on page 121 of the original agenda back in August, I think 22.
We'll have a look. Sorry about this.
It's okay. I'm wondering, presiding member, if it's because the city are only on as presenters that they can't see the share screen.
Maybe the case. So perhaps we allow a little bit of time for the city officers just to check the agenda and view that plan.
We're having a look. We're having a look now. Sorry about this. You find him. So the through the chair, the plan that I'm looking at here, which is the approved plan, shows the bus parking bay to the left or to the east of the site, to the southeast of the site. Is that correct?
Yes, on the left-hand side of the plan,
Yes.
it showed the swing of the bus movement.
Yep. So I haven't got that, but they basically pull out of there and turn around within in the large open area.
Yes, that's right.
And to egress in forward direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has the area, from what I can see at the scale, it doesn't look like the turning area has changed or been reduced. Is that?
Yeah, if it's catering still for the 14.5 metre bus.
Yep.
The Cardno plan shows that the buses needed to swing hard left where there was bus parking proposed.
Right, to be able to make the turn to come back out.
Yeah, well, that's showing it as the turn in one movement, effectively.
Yeah. And where does the problem arise from the amendment?
That there's still a bus parking bay shown over in that area.
Right. Okay, so they need the entire width of that driveway to make that turn, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, plus the bus parking area.
Yeah, plus the bus parking area. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I suppose the solution to that is, if that's still a problem, is to move those bays further towards the highway.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Yes,
to meet those conditions, it's a compromise. Well, one of the compromises is to lose landscaping along that boundary. So the bus the bus parking moves closer back to the entrance.
Right. The plan I've got doesn't show any landscaping. It just shows the service road. But I can see there's a little piece of landscaping at the front. Yes. Yeah, that orange. So that landscaping could actually come forward, could it not?
Potentially, yes. I think it's still shown as orange in the current
Yes.
plan rather than green.
Yes, I can see it as orange. That,
Yeah.
through the chair, that could come forward. There's a service road at the front, but that could come right forward almost to the service road, and that would be a better outcome visually. In fact, it could even be enlarged, couldn't it?
Okay, so in terms of the existing conditions of approval that were basically to solve this issue, from what you're telling us, you're still comfortable that that can be met?
Yes, I think so, and absolutely through the chair, and yes, as I said, it could be enlarged and the landscaping could be moved further towards the highway, so that you have the ability for that bus turning template or circle to be able to take a full movement around the few car parks that are obviously constraining that movement. So we're happy with the condition that would require that change.
Okay, so that's the existing condition. In terms of the parking then, just to be clear, the existing approval requires 38 bays on site, and that was a consideration in the original proposal. And I recall there were a number of submissions and, the matter of parking was closely looked at.
Yes.
But the city's position now is that the loss of 4 bays to accommodate these other parts of the development remains acceptable.
Yes, through the chair, that's the case. There was a question from council about it, which we followed up and responded to. Kevin, I'm going to talk to this, but Kevin undertook a site inspection to confirm the level of parking. So Kevin, you might like to speak to that.
So we did a site inspection during the time the parking was the car park was because that's during daytime is basically unoccupied, empty car park. But during the nighttime when the workers came back from work, then the car park will be filled up at that time.
But there's no overflow.
There's no overflow that's required.
As this is built and functioning, one of the things we looked at is the opportunity for overflow beyond the site, and obviously it's on the highway, and it's surrounded by private land, and there's no opportunities for car parking, and we've had no complaints in regard to there being car parking outside of the site.
Okay, so in terms then of the conditions, as the presiding member suggested earlier, existing condition, I think it's 19, needs to be amended then. So rather than saying you need to provide 38, it says you need to provide 34 parking bays. Are officers satisfied then that there's no other new condition required to address that? I don't know, no other safeguards, I suppose. We're accepting a reduction in the parking.
Yes, we're satisfied with that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. That's all I had, presiding member.
Through the chair, may I speak? Just in terms of our conversation about the bus parking bays, I see there's a part B of that condition which requires the 5 bus bays, and I suppose it could be suggested that that condition addresses the fact that the required turning circle for buses egressing the site is achieved, and that those bays can be moved towards the highway, including the relocation of the landscape, 4 of those, or even enlargement of the landscape, to ensure that those number of bus bays are still provided.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. My question was more around the principle of reducing the car park. Ms. Hope sort of indicated that it is an issue that the panel often has to grapple with, and particularly with workforce accommodation, where the rationale is that a lot of the workers are bussed in, so there's not a need for independent car parking. Now operational, I think you said earlier. So could you just expand on how it's operating and the general sense of car parking provision and how the bus system is working?
Excuse me, through the chair, so can you please repeat the question?
More about expanding on the justification for reducing. Is there an issue with sound?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
we're just trying to enlarge that.
Okay.
It's breaking up a little bit, presiding member, and you've sort of faded away a bit.
Yep.
Well, I will shout.
Thank you.
The question was around the justification for reducing the car parking. And it's a question put to this staff regularly. And the justification is that workforce accommodation relies heavily on busing of the workers from work to the accommodation. Given this is operational, I want to get a sense of how it's actually working. And you did indicate you're satisfied with the proposed reduction. If you could make some further comment about that.
Yeah, yes, I can do that. One of the things that Kevin confirmed to me is that the car park component is reasonably full in the evenings. It does seem to be, although when you look at the overall site, the car parking numbers are quite low. So I think that's probably a reasonable assumption that with those numbers of cars, that some of the workers are using the cars and obviously parking there in the evening. My observation from other workforce accommodation developments that I've looked at post-development, including, in fact, the Vivian Street development, which came through the RDAP, is that, and others, that there's actually not a lot of evidence on the car parks, because many of these car parks are not asphaltic sealed, but are gravel sealed, and would show wear and tear. My observations in seeing and viewing these sites is that it would appear that the private car parking components actually don't seem to be overly utilised, which means that obviously buses are playing quite a large role in the transport of workers to and from the sites. And certainly that is evidenced around town by a couple of significant retailers where personal cars are parked and buses are employed, and at the time of shift, they're either entering the retailer and buying packaged food to either take out to the mine site, or they're actually taking that food home. So there's quite a sort of a shift between people parking their cars often somewhere else in a car park, and we have one site where it's a vacant lot to be developed, and using the minibuses to move between the mine sites. So I suppose my observation is that the car parking component, while important, doesn't seem to be a significant component of the movement of workers to and from the sites.
Thank you, Mr. Lees, for that explanation. Members, any other questions of the city's officers? Councillor Turner?
Yes, we'd also, looking at those original conditions, we'd also have to make an amendment to condition 25 because that also once again mentions 38 on-site parking bays, and so we would have to, that's conditions to be met on an ongoing basis. So there'd also have to be some changes to that condition as well.
26, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. You'll bring that out.
Through the chair, I suppose the easy way to address the bus parking would be for a condition to simply say that a new plan be lodged to demonstrate that the bus turning circle can be achieved, and that the 5 bus bays are still achieved, and the landscaping is still provided. You know, a condition around that I think would improve that. And as I said before, I think enlarging that, or certainly bringing that landscaping forward, probably helps. There obviously is a need for a little bit of queuing space there for someone who does a left turn into that site and then realises there's a vehicle egressing the site. So I acknowledge that. But we haven't had, there haven't been any complaints in regards from Main Roads or others in regard to problems with queuing in terms of accessing that site.
Thank you. But the point Councillor Turner made is that condition 25 refers to 38 parking
Yes.
bays.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the requirement for 5 bus bays, that's not changing as part of the Form 2 application.
No.
The need for appropriate design for bus manoeuvring, that remains. So I don't think we need to impose a new condition.
Okay. Yep.
That requires that. I think Councillor Turner rightly pointed out that if we were to support the Form 2, condition 25 would have to change as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And as I said, the issue of manoeuvring for buses still isn't a matter for the applicant to resolve with the city as part of detailed design. Okay.
Yep.
If there's any other questions for the city's officers? If not, thank you for those comments and response to questions. Members, we've got a recommendation in the RAR to approve subject to conditions. Before I ask for a mover and seconder, I think given the RAR recommendation was supportive of a reduction in car parking, if I would suggest that perhaps we modify condition, the mover and seconder, if that's the case, modify condition 20 and condition 25 to reflect the amended plans, which is 34 bays. No, it's 20. Minutes?
It's 26.
26.
Is it? So in the final minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Just for clarification, Secretary is saying it's condition 19. So would condition 25 still be correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they changed, presiding member. There was some other motions and things that happened.
Sorry.
20. Okay.
Sorry.
Nice to be right occasionally. So yes. So I think if someone's prepared to move the RAR recommendation, Councillor Turner. Now, are you prepared to move it as per the RAR or modifying condition 20 and 25?
No, we need to modify those conditions definitely so that we have that it's reflected as 34 bays, not 38 for both of those conditions.
Yeah. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Deputy Mayor Bella. And just for clarification, we're removing the RAR recommendation, but amending condition 20 and 25 to refer to
26.
it's a 26.
Yeah, because it moved.
Exactly.
All right. So condition 20 and 26. So referring to 34 days. Okay. So, Councillor Turner, did you want to talk to the motion?
No, yeah, well, I'll speak to it briefly. I think that it's the bins have to be put in, so it's a very small reduction in bays in reflection that these parking bays aren't utilised all the time purely because of the type of accommodation. So I think that I would ask for the other panelists to support it. As basically we have the bins have to be put there, so we had to find a workable solution to make the development work.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Deputy Mayor Dalla, did you want to make comment on the motion? No? Thank you. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Anyone else wanting to speak to it? Ms. Hope?
Thank you. I do recall sitting on the panel when this was originally approved, and it was quite a congested development. So it's been interesting to hear how in practice it is actually operating. I suppose I have a reluctance generally to support a reduction, but I think within this site and within the operator's sphere of control, that there is actually sufficient ability to manage this and to satisfy the conditions. I think there's probably a little bit of room in there when you take out the areas required for turning, whether it's some tandem bays. Yeah, I think it can be managed. So for that reason, I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. While I wasn't previously involved in sitting on considering this matter, having reviewed the material, the responsible authority report and discussion today, I'm comfortable to support the recommendation of the responsible authority report. However, incorporating those modifications as we've discussed, and likewise, and while I think comprehensively resolved in terms of capturing those reductions and consideration thereof, I sort of see most of the other items are relatively straightforward, consistent with the original approval, and no reservation on that basis of.
Likewise, I'll be supporting it. I think the changes to the building changes, I consider those minor and happy to support them. In terms of the car parking, I think the response from the city's officers, given this proposal is operational and seems to be well managed, I think a reduction of car parking doesn't seem unreasonable. So on that basis, prepared to support the motion. Councillor Turner, did you want to make any final comments, closing comments?
Yeah, just briefly. I think that it sounds like we're probably all of the same view here, that generally with parking being such a contentious issue, generally you wouldn't look at reducing parking. But in this development, it seems to be working quite well at the moment, given that it is, I suppose it's almost fully operational. So yeah, just thank everyone for taking into consideration. And also I think that even when we have something that comes that seems like quite a minor change, it is very important to look at it a little bit more in depth, because there can be other issues that that come up there. But in this one, I think that yeah, it's good that we can support it here.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion to approve, subject to conditions, and we've noted changes to condition 20 and 26. Members, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. We will just close off the balance of Part B, item 5, section 31, SAP reconsiderations, we have nil. So that concludes part B of the agenda. Thank you, representatives from Kalgoorlie-Boulder. You're welcome to stay on. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. We will get on with some other pressing work. Thank you so much.
So thank you for that.
Presiding member, before you continue, it's really difficult to hear you when you speak. I don't know if the microphone can come a bit closer to you. It's kind of just cutting in and out still.
We will move that microphone closer.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Canella, is that any better?
Yes, that's much better.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning, representatives from the City of Greater Geraldton. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clearly. There's no issues with that at all.
Fantastic. Okay. And good morning. So let's move to item 1 of part C of the agenda. So declarations of due consideration. Members, are you able to declare that you've duly considered the information agenda part C and related information part C? Declaration by raising your hand is fine. Or duly declared. Item 2, disclosures of interest. We have nil to date. I made a comment earlier about requirement under standing orders for local government members where the item's gone to council. Mayor Clune, has this item gone to council?
No, Chairman, no, it hasn't.
Okay, so no declarations necessary?
No.
No other late declarations? Thank you. So we move to item 3, which is Form 1 DAP applications, and item 3.1, Lot 4 and 5 Darlot Road and Lot 6 Mullawa, Wogan Road, Mullawa, and it's for a renewable energy facility. We have a few presentations, and I'll remind all presenters standing orders provide for 3 minutes. The first presenter, Aaron Lohman. Over to you, Aaron.
Excuse me. Thank you, presiding member, for the opportunity to speak today. I'll speak very briefly on this matter. I'm sure you've all seen our submission. In principle, CDH does not have any objections to the proposal. Our concerns come around construction phase access to Mullawa Wogan Road, which is used by CDH traffic. And in the report presented to the panel, the potential for blocking roads. This creates some uncertainty for CDH in respect to the conflict of vehicle movements, especially during our harvest period, which is typically October to January every year. Just by way of background, we have about 15 movements in the peak hour during that time in terms of deliveries coming in, and about 102 vehicle movements per day peak. So when I'm talking vehicles, I'm talking heavy vehicles, which are grower vehicle movements coming into the site. Post-harvest, which it should be less of an issue, we then outload to our facilities in the metro area over an extended period, and there's about 30 trucks per day during that time period. The officer's report does go some way to addressing our concerns in terms of construction traffic with conditions for G and H, but it doesn't go to the specificity of a traffic management plan. Our expectation would be, and we have received similar approvals with a requirement for a traffic management plan to manage construction traffic and existing traffic on the road. That may well be variable measured sign using marshals to get traffic in and out of the site, so there is no potential conflict. So what we would ask in regard to the size of the vehicles, while we've been road is a RAP4 route, so that's 27.5 metre trucks up to 88 tonnes with big trucks. We would like some clarification on the condition amended to include a traffic management plan, so traffic could be managed during the construction period.
Thank you for your presentation. Before you go, members, questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question. Does CDH have any plans to expand their present storage position to what it is at the moment?
Not that I'm aware of at the Mullewa site.
That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, Queen, was there a follow-up to that question?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. You raised the construction management plan. Obviously, ordinarily, and the construction management plan looks at construction vehicles, so that part of it, I think, can be addressed. Is the issue during construction or the issue ongoing in your view?
Sorry, it's just a construction related issue. I'd expect that to be very limited vehicles coming out of that facility post construction.
So from CDH's perspective, you see less of an issue once, if it's supported, once this facility is operational.
That's right.
Okay, all right. Maybe that's a question of the city's officers as well. Members, any other questions? No? Mr. Lowen, thank you for your presentation. The next presenter is Nick Hitting.
Thank you, presiding member, and good morning, panel members and city officers. My name is Nick Hitting Urban Planning, representing Sunrise Energy for the proposed renewable energy facility, comprising a solar farm and 2 wind turbine and associated infrastructure. Thanks for the opportunity to present. We support the officer's recommendation for approval presented in the Responsible Authority report prepared by the city. We're accepting of the conditions that have been recommended. We actually had the opportunity to provide preliminary comments on the draft conditions prior to the finalisation of the RA, so that was beneficial. We thank the city for its assessment and recommendation. Just in response to Mr. Lohman's comments about construction management plan and traffic management, I don't believe that would be too problematic. I think that could probably be updated in the conditions. I think Main Roads has also required that in their referral advice. So I don't have a problem with that being added if the panel sees fit to do that. The benefits of the project have been clearly articulated by Sunrise Energy, and they'll present on that separately. We believe that this project, as a potential repeatable model, will provide great benefits to the locality and improve reliability for the power for the locality as well. So we'd ask the panel to support this proposal consistent with the recommendation, and we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hitting. Members, questions? Ms. Hope?
Thank you. I was just interested in your comments on a couple of things. The first one was just concerning just general operational management of this use. This panel has imposed, I suppose, more general operational management plans on these types of facilities, albeit we usually consider a solar farm and a wind farm as separate uses, not in a combined proposal. Do you have any comments about that? I'm thinking more the ongoing operation, even complaint handling mechanism, amenity issues if they arise over time.
Yeah, look, thank you for the question. Through presiding member, we wouldn't have a problem with developing an operational management plan. I'm sure the group will have something available for that, and as this is being set up as a potential repeatable model for other localities, I think there'd be some synergies in there to do that. So look, if the panel believes there is a need for an operational management plan to be presented as a condition, I don't believe that would be problematic at all.
Okay, thank you. The other question, and I'm just was having another check through if I'd missed it, was just to do with bushfire risk management. That's also been an issue that's come up on other renewable energy projects. Risk to the infrastructure as well as the infrastructure creating a bushfire risk.
Yeah, look, thank you for the question. The site isn't within a bushfire prone area, so that is a good thing. Obviously, bushfire risk is problematic, across Western Australia. The properties are largely cleared in this section as well, so I think the bushfire risk is very low. But I think maybe in the operational management plan there can be some general comments made about managing the site as in a low threat state or something like that to just keep that matter at bay. Otherwise, I think, given it's not in a bushfire prone area, no other particular management plans I think would be necessary.
Okay. Then I've heard the comment before around the construction traffic. One of the proposed conditions refers to, so I've skipped ahead now. It relates to, let me see. Sorry, I've lost my spot. Condition number 5, and it says the proponent from time to time is responsible to ensure that all installations are carried out in terms of the noise assessment. My understanding, and I wanted to confirm that yours is that it's going to be required to comply in an ongoing fashion to that report. It's a question I had for the city about the from time to time. Just confirming your understanding, like mine, is that the recommendations of that report are to be adhered to. They're the assumptions that have been made about noise impact.
Yes, thanks for the question. Our position would be the same as you. Condition is required to be complied with ongoing. So I think it's just a wording issue. The city can provide further clarity on that, but yeah, thank you.
Okay. I suppose the other just general comment that I had is that this panel from time to time is seeing an increase in this type of application, but there's not a lot of direction, I suppose, available to us about what's required and where in terms of these facilities and need to meet future energy demands. How does this fit, I suppose, in terms of the strategic picture of alternative energy sources? You mentioned before about being a model that can be rolled out elsewhere. Is this part of, I suppose, a bigger strategic view of, moving towards this low carbon future?
Look, perhaps the Sunrise Energy Group comment on that further, but I think it's seeing deficiencies in the network that the project teams are working with Western Power on trying to address in a different way. I guess it's the reliability issues in some regional localities, which this is why these projects are coming up to try and supplement what's going on in these areas, trying to find an alternate outcome and provide improved reliability for the locality. So while it's a repeatable model, I think it's case by case basis. I think in Sunrise's presentation, they've indicated that there's 2 other localities that Western Power have indicated are quite pressing. So they're looking at models for those locations as well. So I think there's a little bit of a broader picture going on, but I think it's case by case at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps, Sunrise might have some more response on that. The final question I had was just in terms of the scale and the height of the wind turbines. There's a diagram in the agenda documentation that compares it to other types of turbines. And I know this panel has seen some that are probably nearly double the height of this. Did you have any further commentary about that, and particularly that visual impact?
Yes, I think the wind turbines have been selected for this locality based on their needs. So, and I guess there would be a requirement to construct what's approved and not go beyond that. So the visual impact assessment has been done based on the sizing that's been chosen for this. Yeah, Sunrise might have more to add on that, but I think that's probably it.
Okay, thank you.
Members, any other questions? I do have a question, and just follows on from what Ms. Hope suggested about strategic location. Just sort of honing down on that, the reason why this site is proposed for this renewable facility, or can you respond to that, Mr. Heading, or is that something for Sunrise?
It may be better for Sunrise. I guess a couple of comments to make. First, you've got to find available land and willing landowners to participate in such a proposal. And the other is obviously network location, trying to connect it with the existing network as well. So there's a whole range of factors in choosing a suitable site. But I'll let Matthew from Sunrise expand on that if you want to ask the question again after his presentation.
Thank you. Members, any final questions? If not, Mr. Heading, sorry, no? Mr. Heading, thank you for your presentation. Matthew Stewart from Sunrise Energy.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm not sure if my video is coming through at the moment. Can't see it on my screen. Is that the case?
Can't see you. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on. It worked during the test case. Oh, hang on. Yeah, a request has just come through. Hello. Yes, I'm Matt Stewart. I'm the Sunrise Energy Group project manager for the Mulluwa microgrid. I believe you received my submission for the presentation, and I've had a chance to go over this, so I won't repeat it in detail, but speak around some of the main points. As a renewable energy developer, Sunrise has long held an interest in understanding how renewables could contribute to tackling the problem of energy reliability at the fringe of grid. And when the opportunity arose to obtain federal funding for a study in this area, we pursued it and we secured collaboration with Western Power and Synergy. Mulluwa was chosen for the study from Western Power's list of the worst performing towns, and Sunrise was awarded the study in October 2021. Our solution arising from the study, and which is the basis of this development application, is built on extensive consultation from the local community all the way up to the Minister for Energy at the time, Bill Johnson. And it's a microgrid with local renewable energy generation, battery, diesel, backup, and connection to the grid. The renewable generation will be consumed locally with any excess power exported up the line towards Geraldton. And the innovation lies in the protection, controls, and automation design that enables this seamless transition to an islanded microgrid during grid outages and supporting the town indefinitely. Local renewable generation reduces costs, CO2 emissions, line losses, and eases the load on the 100-kilometre power line serving Mulluwa. A solar-wind combination optimizes performance and reduces dependency on a single energy source. The role of the battery is to shift the energy to peak demand times, enhancing the value of the renewables, and it's key to supporting the seamless switching to island mode during grid outages. It also reduces reliance on diesel during low renewable periods. The diesel generator provides long-term backup during extended outages and when the renewables are low, and it ensures reliability if the renewable generation or battery systems fail. The obvious benefit to the Mulluwa community is the improved reliability, leading to better living, working, and learning environments. But reducing the power interruptions and increasing access to greater capacity will also help with retaining and growing business, leading to improved employment prospects and hopefully just promoting general economic growth. The renewable microgrid also offers training opportunities and energy-related skills, and it's particularly pleasing for us that we'll be able to provide ongoing support for the local football club through lease payments for the solar farm land. In terms of its wider impact, the Mullawa microgrid is set to become a prototype for other fringe grid towns, with similar solutions already being sought for Ravensthorpe and Bremer Bay. Specifically, Western Power have issued expressions of interest for similar renewable microgrids to support reliability there. So that's it. Thank you for the opportunity to present and for your consideration of the project. It sounds like there'll be some questions, so I'm happy to take those.
Thank you, Matthew. Members, questions? Ms. Hope, did you want to start that off?
I can, presiding member, or you can. I think you've touched on it as this being a prototype and catering to the particular grid and, well, relative remoteness of here. Do you have any particular comment to make about, I suppose, this broader strategic view of this? It is an issue that comes before this panel about this change in power generation and the land use planning impact it has, because it looks quite different in the landscape to what we're familiar with.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it comes from the change in general from sort of what we call where energy was, generated at large installations in Collie and sort of transmitted across the state. Now we're moving to more distributed energy where people are generating their own, energy on their rooftops, and so that's as part of this is trying, Sunrise's sort of ideas being to sort of produce energy where it's consumed instead of having to transmit it these great distances, especially to these fringe grid towns where the long radial power lines are subject to failure due to environment and a number of reasons, and that sort of is causing these issues in these fringe grid towns, and that's being focused on more. Western Power's reliability has often been sort of evaluated on an average performance, and so these sort of fringe grid towns, although they're performing badly, when you average it out over the whole network, it doesn't reflect the actual problems that they're having. But this is getting more focused with the ERA putting more, I think, conditions on Western Power more recently to solve these problems. That's why we've seen Western Power being supportive of this study, and also recently coming out with these expressions of interest for Ravensthorpe and Bremer Bay. Western Power produce a network opportunities map where they actually list the poorest performing sort of, these feeder power lines that have the issues, and so we've been using that as a basis to start looking for these areas to I guess plan for a repeatable model such as Mullawa. But yeah, Mullawa was picked basically from the list of worst performing towns on the grid, and that's how it came about as being the basis for the study and I guess this prototype model.
Okay. So is this facility, it caters for storage of the power the facility generates? Does it also cater for storage, of the town? If people have solar panels and so on, can this end up, or is it of capacity to become more of a standalone type system, or it need to expand more?
Certainly designed to be grid connected. So it's, but it can operate in what we call an island mode. So that's the premise of the reliability, is that if you lose that connection from the main power grid, it automatically disconnects from that grid and starts up what we call a microgrid, and the battery is key in that because of the speed of its response. And that once in island mode, it can actually support the town. There's the generation from the wind and solar, and there's also the stored battery power. And then in the event that's a long duration outage, and say you've got a poor solar and wind days, then you've got the diesel backup as a final solution to sort of cater for longer term outages. People's solar and still will operate as it does. There's no impact on them, but the storage is really catered for the on-site generation from the wind and solar.
Okay, thank you. I think the genesis of my questions is that we see a number of these facilities about regional WA, and it kind of lacks that context around what's required, where and why. And yeah, understanding that in terms of land use and amenity implications. So yeah, thank you for responding to my clunky questions.
No problem, you're welcome.
That's all from me.
Matthew, a follow-up question. I understand, based on the comments you made, why Mullawa town site. Is part of the driver for this location the proximity of Western Power infrastructure? Is that what drives this location?
You mean the location within Mullawa? Or Mullawa as a location?
Not Mullawa, this site specifically.
Yeah, this site specifically. Yeah, it's what Nick came to. It's well, key when we're looking at sites, and which we did at Mullawa and also Bremer Bay and Ravensthorpe, is look at the incoming power line, because we have to island the network. We would need to be able to connect into the grid, and also be able to put an isolation point on the incoming feeder. So we look for land close to the incoming feeder. We did that for Mullawa, but we're unsuccessful in finding landowners that had the power line in the vicinity that was that were able to support the project. So that's why we look elsewhere around the town. And again, you know, the economics of these projects is not well, they're not big profit making projects. So in order to make them viable, you have to sort of limit the capital expenditure, and one of the ways of doing that is locate it as close as possible to existing power lines, so you don't have to add a lot of capital expense for putting power lines, you know, from the solar and wind to connect into the grid. So that's quite key to locating it. So because we couldn't locate the incoming power line, we were able to move to the east of Mullawa, where we could still connect into the grid, with limit with keeping sort of power lines to a minimum, and we're using some radio technology to actually actuate the isolation at the incoming feeder point.
Thank you. No, that's clarified it. Councillor Colliver, did you have a question?
No.
Sorry, I thought you were raising your hand. Members, any other questions of Mr. Stewart? If not,
sorry, just one maybe as an aside, but just more probably as interest. You mentioned the similarity of what's proposed in relation to other edge of grid situations. You mentioned Bremer Bay, and are you suggesting you've been looking at an addition to the existing wind turbine facility in Bremer Bay, or you're involved with the provision of what's already operational in Bremer Bay?
At the moment, Western Power haven't been too specific. They've come out with expressions of interest looking for a microgrid solution for reliability there. So we obviously noted that they have an existing wind turbine, so and some diesel generators. So our response to that was that we propose a solar farm and the and battery and the automated sort of islanding mode. And if it was possible, you know, subject to consultation with Western Power and Synergy, who operate the wind farm there, we could incorporate wind turbine within that microgrid network, and perhaps the existing diesel generations if they were still suitable. But if that wasn't workable, then we would look at potentially if we could add additional wind if that was necessary as well. So It depends on the load in the town and the amount of generation required.
Yeah, no, it's great. It was more out of context. It probably isn't so specific to this application. It was just more an understanding. Thanks.
Yeah, we have to, even though it's a sort of repeatable model, it's like Nick sort of said, the details of each case still have to be sort of customized. Yeah.
Thank you. Members, no other questions? Thank you, Mr. Stewart. So we now move to the City of Greater Geraldton offices. Serena Swenko, are you the right person? Yep. Serena, did you want to make any comments about the application?
No, nothing specific.
There has been, well, maybe I can start. There's been some questions raised about the potential to include some traffic management requirement as part of the construction management plan, and perhaps also the requirement for an operational management plan. Do you have a comment about potentially including conditions associated with those matters?
No, nothing specific. Just the condition for the construction management plan, the way that it's worded at present, covers most of the requirements in terms of vehicle movements, how materials and so forth are going to come and go to the site, and mitigation of those sorts of things. So, you know, there's A through to K, a list of things that the construction management plan would potentially cover. Also noting that the entrance to the CBH site is about 700 metres away to the proposed entrance to the site as well.
Yeah, I think I agree that it's generally covered. The question was more around providing more specific reference, noting that we are talking about very significant vehicles, and perhaps addressing that more formally.
Yes, if the panel sees that as a necessary addition to the conditions, the city doesn't have any objection to that.
Okay, and the other matter was the potential for an operation management plan, which, as Ms. Hope has suggested, this panel has imposed similar proposals, and maybe focus around traffic management, but also around dealing with things like bushfire prevention. Has the city got a view about that?
No specific issues with that, and potentially, yes, it's a good idea to have further operational ongoing requirements in place.
Okay, thank you. Members, questions of the city's officers?
If I may, previous presiding member, just a query in relation to consideration of noise, and particularly not only the condition as suggested, but broader than, I suppose, an obligation of ongoing compliance with the environmental protection noise regulations. Like, I suppose I appreciate the assessment that has been presented based on the existing sensitive premises and relevance in relation to compliance, not so much a question, but and as I say, this is a question of responsible authority. Do you see, given your planning framework in the locality, there being any risk or consideration of any future potential noise-sensitive premises that could be established within proximity that may complicate future compliance with the assigned levels in the regulations?
That was something we did consider, and we did request that the applicant provide that information in regard to the spread of noise and compliance, which they provided. And our environmental health officers reviewed that as well, and it was deemed to be acceptable.
Maybe not necessarily specifically answering. I think the question was there something that is specifically considered that in the information provided? I didn't see it there.
Sorry, what was that?
And it's maybe not so much a question in relation to the acceptability of what's presented, it's more consideration of the ease and ability of the operator to continue to comply with the requirements going forward. I mean, it has been a consideration that often comes up on similar proposals. I was just wondering, if there had been consideration to the planning framework and whether it was likely that that was going to be a thing that particularly the city would need to consider in the future if there was.
Well, the land is zoned rural and all of the surrounding land is rural, and there's not really any future proposals to modify that in any way for more intensification of that area.
Yeah, just maybe, I suppose, if it's a single rural dwelling on a lot that's in an inconvenient location, it's probably more a consideration that, and if that does require, it may not actually require planning approval, but if that did present in the future, it's probably a consideration to be aware of. But I know with larger proposals that has been addressed through more sort of formal mechanisms introduced into the scheme. But I don't think it's necessarily required here, but I was just wondering if there's been any consideration given to that.
No, well, the only way potentially to protect that would be by way of a caveat or something similar on the subject property.
Yeah, no, as I said, I don't think it's a particularly significant issue for this one, and as I said, it's not so much for what's presented; it's more in the future. But I don't think it's necessarily driving a specific response. I have seen introduction of special control areas for that, but I don't think in this one it's warranted. But I was just wondering if that had been considered, given whether there may be a demand or an expectation for additional dwellings. But it was just more a point of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Colliver, you had your hand raised.
It was just actually clarification of the question, and the way that that I understood your question was, are we expecting there to be further development around the site in the future that could be impacted by the noise from the wind turbines, etc.? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, yes, or if it had been considered, how you may consider if there was, and I suppose I'm mindful that there may be many single dwellings that may not even come to or require planning approval, but it's really more a question of is there a possibility of the introduction of new sensitive premises in proximity to the facility that haven't been considered now that may complicate compliance in the future?
We would think not.
No, we did take that into consideration, but the likelihood is minimal.
Thank you. I guess just expanding that, given the rural zoning, the likelihood is low.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the fact that it's only vacant lots in Mullawa as it is 10 lots.
Thank you, Mayor Clune. Any other questions of the city's officers? No? Thank you. In which case, we now move to the RAR recommendation. Members, is someone prepared to move the RAR recommendation?
Yes,
Mayor Clune?
Yes, I'll move.
Thank you.
Presented.
A second.
Happy to say.
Oliver? Yep. Thank you. Mayor Clune, did you want to talk to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Anyone who knows Mullawar reasonably well will know that they enjoy a very long and hot summer. And also going with that long and hot summer, they enjoy a lot of unreliable electricity to their premises. So much so that the city has had to put their own generation, portable generation units in key strategic places within Mullawar because of the lack of reliability of power, and also it can be out for a number of days, not just a number of hours. So this is like a breath of fresh air coming to Mullawar. It is seen as a critical place for unreliable power. If this development does go ahead and produces power, then the people of Mullawar will be more than happy. There's very little community comment on the proposal as there is, so I think they're just waiting for it when it will happen. It's a rather small scale production. It's not a large thing as far as a renewable project is. It'll be quite a small thing. And as I said, there's a lot of backup systems currently in place in Mullawar and the surrounds, just because of the lack of reliable power. I'm also satisfied that the construction management plan covers mostly all the questions that or the concerns that are placed there. So I'm fully supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Clune. Councillor Colliver, did you want to make any comment on the motion?
Likewise, you know, the power reliability out in Mullawar is just horrendous and has been for many years. The impact on the community is great. It impacts on the livability out there. It also impacts heavily on businesses. So there is a lack of confidence out there for business to operate. I think that this will be a really great pilot for other end of the group communities as well. So I think that the Mullawar community will be very excited to see this go ahead. I too also think that the current construction management plan does address the issues raised with traffic management in terms of CBH's concerns around harvest. I would also hope that the two entities can work together on this and communicate very well when there is going to be any major disruptions in terms to access along that road there. I do also note the comments made about the need for an operational management plan. I know we're not making any amendments in terms of that. Is that correct? And in terms of a traffic management plan as well? Is that correct?
It may be that someone may want to might want to include a requirement. We haven't got to that point just yet.
And you know, I also note the questions around the more strategic framework around what these sorts of microgrids look like, you know, going out into our rural areas. It is something that we do need to consider, and it is an interesting space, I know, because we all know that we need to move into renewables, but we are having friction in terms of land use. You know, whether agriculture and renewables can coexist. So it is something I think that we need to look at and how we manage that into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Colliver. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Anyone else wanting to speak to the motion? Ms. Hope?
Thank you. I'm also supportive of the recommendation, but I do foreshadow a couple of changes. Just in general, it's been useful to gain a better understanding of the purpose of this facility. I suppose often we're confronted with very big commercial scale renewable energy facilities that come for different purpose. Whereas in this instance, I think there's a scale and there's potential here around the cogeneration, but particularly purpose of community benefit and providing some more reliability to the community. I've noted in the application material that perhaps some of the setbacks, they're not meeting, for example, the 1.5 kilometre setback to some of the sensitive, I think there's 2 homes that are relatively nearby, but I'm satisfied with the assessments that have happened in terms of managing and understanding what that likely impact is, whether that's the noise or the visual impact, but also quite comfortable with generally the conditions that are proposed, that will regulate and provide that ongoing comfort as the facility is constructed and then operates. That said, I do foreshadow a couple of minor changes to the recommendation as well.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to make a comment on the application?
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Through you. Likewise, having regard to the responsible authority report that's been presented to us in response to the application received, I'm supportive of the recommendation that has been put to us and therefore would be in support of the motion moved. I suppose more broadly, given the discussions around context, having grown up in Bremer Bay, both pre and post renewable intervention in terms of edge of grid, totally understand the context for this proposal. And I think while it was mentioned before, there's further proposals proposed there. I totally understand the context of this in relation to local community and power reliability and comments that have been made previously. Likewise, in terms of context, appreciate this isn't a major regional grid feed renewable proposal, both in terms of spatial footprint scale, but also height and number of turbines. So it I suppose reflects that that local support and context to the grid. But so therefore, understand and appreciate it, and I think the scale is totally, and what's proposed is totally responsive to that. In terms of other considerations as presented, noted, while the responsible authority report did note that the site was in bushfire prone area, as was mentioned before by Mr. Hitting, that there is only a small portion of the site and not where development is proposed. It also would appear that based on air photography that has been provided in various packages, that it is the surrounding land is sort of actively being used. It would appear for rural activities, and would also maybe assume under leasehold that would continue, but would support. There's a further discussion previously around the operational management plan, should that be moved, that would provide further clarity for how that is managed, really just specifically for the operation and the facility and the footprint going forward. And likewise in relation to noise compliance, and while I was asked the question, having had some exposure to this with much larger facilities where there is a larger footprint and therefore a potential, not so easy to rule out the potential for future rural dwellings and how that can be managed, which might complicate future compliance. I think in the context here, and also given the scale of this facility, I don't think that other measures are necessarily needed here to ensure that compliance into the future. And lastly, I think the other key thing to note from this one is renewable energy projects in rural areas can bring a wide range of responses. I noticed in this case,
through advertising, very limited extent of public submissions, definitely none that weren't in support of the application, and I think that sort of responds to the context for this proposal in the local community. So therefore, on that basis, I'm happy to support the motion as put forward.
Thank you. Thank you. I will also be supporting the motion. I think the other members have comprehensively addressed the reasons for supporting it, and I won't repeat those. I'll simply add that from the planning framework perspective and the local planning scheme, I think it's a use that can be approved and fits well within the current zoning, and the objectives of the rural zone are being met by this proposal. So I'm comfortable to support the motion. Ms. Hope, you did foreshadow perhaps some minor changes?
I did. Thank you, presiding member. There's three matters. So perhaps if I just deal with them one by one.
Yes.
The first one is concerning proposed condition 5, and that is to delete the words "from time to time." The reason for that is clarity that the condition for noise management is an ongoing requirement.
Just is someone prepared to second that? Mr. Hicks. Ms. Hope, did you want to talk any further on that motion?
No, I think that's self-explanatory.
Yes.
Yeah, and sorry. And just further to that, I appreciate that maybe the wording may have been intended to imply that from time to time it may need to be demonstrated that it's in compliance, but the actual mere fact of compliance does need to be continual regardless of how that might be demonstrated. So likewise, I would agree with the proposed change to the word.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to that?
No.
If not, I want to put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Ms. Hope?
Thank you. The second matter is to add a new part L to condition 4, which is the construction management plan. I agree to a certain extent that most of the subsections there kind of lead you to the conclusion that traffic on the local road network will be managed. However, I think we should be clear and specify a new part L that says construction traffic management measures for the local road network. I think that is a little bit different perhaps to some of the other matters that are there. It just spells it out very clearly.
Ms. Hope, before I seek a seconder, are you happy to make some direct reference to CBH operations?
I felt that this requirement, we see it consistently in construction management plans, particularly for these types of large developments that involve large bits of equipment, materials and things being transported to site, that it's a more general consideration. I'm not opposed, though, presiding member, to add the words perhaps including in relation to CBH, but I think the local road network captures more users more broadly. You know, I gather that large, you know, whether it's the wind turbine, the solar panels, you know, they're going to be trucked in over a long distance, and that needs to be managed much broader than just immediately here in Mullewa.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Mr. Hick? Ms. Hope, did you want to make any further comment?
No, I think that explains it.
No? Mr. Hicks, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. I support the motion and likewise agree. I think the wording definitely wouldn't agree with it needing to be limited to considerations around CBH, but I think that the wording and being more holistic in its view will not only cover the the necessary considerations around what will be the most significant traffic generating use in proximity, but other considerations as well. If other members had concerns around specific consideration, I would possibly suggest if he made reference in the advice note, but I'm not strongly of the view that it needs to be included and therefore support the motion.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to the motion?
Yep.
Yes.
Councillor Colliver, are you opposed or do you want to speak
yes,
to the motion?
I am opposed. I think that the intent is adequately captured already. When we're talking about locating wind turbines out into that area, we are already seeing a significant amount of wind turbines coming out of the Geraldton port and travelling by road well east. I mean, and that is actually managed from a main road perspective with a huge amount of traffic management and pilot vehicles and all the rest. I just think that that is already covered in other ways. I just think that this is a little bit overkill, quite frankly.
Thank you, Councillor Colliver. I will be supporting the motion. I accept the view that it's generally covered, but in reading all the parts of condition 4, there's nothing really specific about traffic management, and I think it's an appropriate and standard requirement, so I will be supporting it. Mayor Clune, I think you indicated you were opposed to it. Did you want to talk to it?
Yes, I'm opposed to it because I think there is a view amongst the panel that it's a large construction thing, and I differ that it's a very small thing as compared to wind turbines of other structures that are around the place. So this one's very small and very minor.
Oh, thank you. Ms. Hope, did you want to sort of any closing remarks?
Only that I think this is a fairly minor change, but I think it's an important one to make. And perhaps in context of other road network considerations and obligations, it may well be quite easy for the applicant to address. So I think it's quite relevant to specify that. But yeah, overall, I think it can be readily addressed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion now. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Ms. Hope, I think you said there were 3 items?
I did. The third one is to include the requirement for an operational management plan. I have got some suggested wording. Is it easy if I just share the screen?
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure if the city will be able to see it. We had that issue in the prior matter.
No,
has it come up on your screen?
yes, it has.
Good, excellent. So this was foreshadowed earlier. So operational management, addressing those risk matters, including fire risk, amenity impacts arising, and complaints handling mechanism. So I think just a general operational consideration as good neighbours, and over the life of the operation.
Ms. Hope, before I put that, Mayor Clune, Councillor Colliver, you can see that?
Yes, yes. Yep.
You can? Good. Okay. Is someone prepared to second that motion? Mr. Hicks? Ms. Hope, did you want to talk to that motion?
No, I think that covers it. Probably other than to mention again that this has been a common condition that the regional panel has imposed on other similar type proposals. And I suppose experience has been is that it's a good kind of catch-all around being a good neighbour, and it can be a good management method across the time that the facility operates. Obviously, there's a scale here of this facility and its likely impacts compared to some bigger operations that we see. But yeah, I think it's still important to impose.
Thank you. Mr. Hicks?
I think, Mr. Presiding Member, I likewise agree that I think it's a sensible inclusion, and the simple wording of it and the fact that it's the satisfaction of the responsible authority would also give some flexibility there to ensure that it deals with really the sort of key local and relevant items to be managed, and while not restricted to bushfire and bushfire risk, that's included. So on that basis, I'd be supportive of that motion.
Thank you. Members opposed to the motion?
No objections.
No objection.
No. Any other comment on the motion? No. In which case, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Ms. Hope, was there anything else from your perspective? Members, were there any other potential changes to conditions or advice notes? If not, Mayor Clune, you moved the original motion. Would you like to make any closing comments?
No, I don't wish to make any further comments.
All right, in which case we have a motion to approve. We've made a few changes to conditions. So I'll put the substantive motion. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
So in terms of the balance of the agenda, item 4, Form 2 applications, we have nil. Item 5, Section 31 SAT reconsiderations, we have nil. Part D, other business. Item 1, SAT applications and Supreme Court appeals, they're listed on the agenda. Item 2, general business. Members, any general business you'd like to raise? In which case, thank you for your participation this morning, and I'd like to declare the meeting closed at 11:18. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.